My spouse lost our $1 million net worth in a crypto scam behind my back.
Oh, but babe, Dinglecoin was gonna pop off, I swear.
Editor's note, a pig butchering/slaughtering scheme is a scam where a scammer builds a relationship with someone before convincing them to invest in a fraudulent thing. Late last year, I was not doing well, mentally speaking. My spouse had just gone through some stuff themselves, and we were just moping and not being kind to each other. I said some things that led them to believe I was exploring the idea of leaving them. By the way, this comes from Slaughtered Piggy and Adorable Prophet. Oh, little double thing. If you want to submit your own stories, go to the r/OKStorytime subreddit. I'm Sophia.
I'm Dakota.
I'm Keon.
And we're here to give good advice goofily, but we don't have all the answers. We only know what we do, so let us know what you would do in the comments. I wasn't. I was actually implying that I was afraid they would leave me. This misunderstanding and the general bad vibes compelled my spouse to seek advice from people on social media. One such friend posed as a financial advisor at an investment firm and suggested my spouse invest jointly in some sort of diversified asset portfolio. My spouse did so by liquidating a savings account they had from before we got married. I had no knowledge of any of this was happening, as I was busy dealing with my own life spontaneously combusting, trying to get back on my feet, and generally being a sad sack. This investment had to be made in crypto, of course. My spouse has been subject to multiple rants from me that crypto is a pyramid scheme. Worse than a meme stock, because at least those are insured. So my spouse was somehow assured that the whole thing was legit because only the transfers had to be made in crypto. The rest was put into an account and could be seen in USD by logging into a website with posted transaction history and dividends. A couple of months passed and the investment had basically quadrupled in value. The friend enticed my spouse to upgrade the account. This is where my spouse began to draw from our joint accounts, joint savings, and the proceeds we recently got from the sale of our last house. Of course, the friend knew about the fact that we had massive proceeds from a real estate sale because my spouse told them. When we sold it, my spouse and I explicitly agreed to roll those proceeds into our current mortgage to reduce our payments by a substantial amount, which would make us much better off financially. At this time, as a result of my issues going away and the sale of that house, which had taken forever, I had gotten my act together and was noticeably happier. Still, for whatever reason, my spouse persisted in hiding that they did something different with the proceeds from me. I was still completely in the dark. Of course, this new input supposedly paid off, and the website reflected even better dividends. My spouse claims that they thought it was legit because of how crypto was going nuts at the time. Of course, had my spouse checked in with me at any time, I would have immediately clocked it as a scam from day one. So now comes the real mess. My spouse attempted to close out the investment account. In came the fees and taxes and whatnot. I was still sitting there, happy as can be, thinking of how nice it would be now that I've gotten back on my feet to also refinance my stupid mortgage and have money to finally enjoy buying nice things we had been putting off. Of course, all our savings, proceeds, and retirement were gone at this time. So my spouse went hat in hand to their family, who loaned them basically an entire master's degree of student loans worth of money. My spouse converted it all to crypto.
What?
I literally
What?
am like suing this guy. I'm suing him, as per usual, and away it went into the black hole of fraud, while I blissfully remain completely ignorant like a total moron. Now my spouse put in withdrawal requests. They got my spouse's ID, account numbers, you name it. New fees popped up, new loans were made. Chuck them all in the pile. Why not? After a couple of months of delays, moving money around to different banks, yes, they had multi-factor logins, account histories, and all sorts of nonsense to make it look legit, the spouse started to get the family coming knocking, asking for payment before they were hit with taxes. Of course, the in-laws did not tell me any of this, so they're all on my list as well for being complete morons, not figuring out it was a scam, and not once thinking that they should ask my spouse if they had permission for me to borrow 6 figures. So the spouse went to an actual friend, mentioned what was going on, and the actual friend, bless them, clued in the spouse that it sounded fishy. Yeah, you've lost millions of freaking dollars, and your friend is like, this doesn't sound right.
Never give strangers access to your financial accounts.
Valentine's Day weekend, lucky me. The spouse detailed the whole sordid thing. Spouse didn't know it was a scam until they started telling me. I clocked it immediately. Through drips and dribbles, I got the damage. It's gone. All of it. Our entire savings, and we're in substantial debt. Our net worth before this was creeping up towards 1 million. Now it's 6 figures in the red. I'm honestly still in shock. My friends wonder why I haven't filed for divorce. Probably because all that would accomplish is losing the one thing we have left, as we would have to sell the house. I've forced my spouse into marital counseling, and we will be executing papers to make sure the debts are not owned by me jointly, but just my spouse. We're putting the assets in my name. If I leave, I lose the house and walk away with a massive IOU. But my spouse, they'd be most of the way to $1 million in debt to me because of this. I don't know if I have the heart to do that. Since none of this was malicious, it was just really, really stupid and dishonest, but mostly stupid.
Maliciously stupid and dishonest.
They lied to you. Your spouse lied to you. Took money. That is malicious. I don't care if they were like, well, I'm going to get all this money back and it's going to be great. They lied to you.
Dingle coin is the future, babe. Dingle coin is the future.
Yes, I've been forcing the spouse to report it all to law enforcement. Of course, the spouse freaked out when I immediately clocked it as fraud and went on a rant, not kindly, about how my life savings are probably right now financing bad stuff. Yes, I know it's probably all gone and I'm not getting any of it back. Anyway, that's that. I wanted to share to remind you all that some knowledge can be much than none. My spouse is educated, as am I, and we've done well for ourselves through former investments that have paid off. That led my spouse to complacency and faith in themselves. I believe them when they say they did not know it was a scam. I don't even care if they didn't know it was a scam. I don't even care. At the core of this, they lied to you. Took out millions or thousands and thousands of dollars because you said you were almost at $1 million.
An
so
interesting
thousands
theory would be what Neo's Nook on TikTok says. The family seems to have money.
Yes, because they gave him money.
I think means that maybe this guy never learned
financial
what the value of money really is.
Maybe.
And he was just like, oh yeah, well whatever. I can put all of our money into what should have been obviously a scam, and it's like it does it. Well, whatever. We're all right.
But that does not change the fact that now our retirement is gone, and we have to factor in these horrific debts that shouldn't exist every time we contemplate doing something completely inane, like spending $2 on brand name oatmeal instead of generic. Please, please, please do not fall victim to things like this. I do not wish this on anyone. Don't keep your finances secret from your family. Always gut check with someone you know in real life, and trust when something seems like a good opportunity. As soon as someone proposes any transaction in crypto, it should be a red flag. Just because there's an account, a website, receipts, and paperwork, it does not mean it's real. I'm sharing this here for informational purposes because I don't want this to happen to anyone else. I'm also open to advice or roasting. Believe me, I've already said horrible things to myself. There's not a lot you can say that I haven't already thought. And edit, OP clarified in a few comments that they didn't want to gender their spouse in the post because they didn't want the internet to make this into a gendered issue. And there are some comments. OP had many comments that contained a lot of good information. I tried to only include the most illustrative and helpful ones, but if you have a specific question, OP probably answered it. To a deleted commenter, me, yeah, I shouldn't have been checked out of what was going on with the accounts while trying to recover from a professional setback. The spouse, product of highly religious upbringing, I've come to find out. I did not fully appreciate the extent to which being indoctrinated in extreme blind faith on a regular basis when you're super young does to set you up for a lifetime of being taken advantage of. Talk to a bankruptcy lawyer. We're talking to a BK attorney right now. We're kind of effed either way. These are all private loans, so our credit is still pristine. If we go BK, the loans disappear. But so does our good credit. If we don't go BK, the loans can be slowly repaid. Family will restructure, and we keep our credit scores. I want to go BK. We have the intake appointment later this month. If I have some attorneys verifying it's the right thing to do, it's going to be a painful ultimatum to the spouse. Burn your family or burn me. Their decision will tell me a lot of things. Commenter says the spouse who fell for the scam should be removed from all accounts. Obviously, they don't have the wherewithal to avoid the scams. OP says, already done. We have 2 separate accounts and a single joint one right now. My income goes into one, the mortgage is paid there, spouse's income goes into the other. The debts that are due right now are paid there. Everything else is on a credit card and is paid out of the joint after we split the amount due and transfer from separate accounts into the joint. I made the spouse come clean to all of our close friends and family, including mine. Everyone knows they are in the dog's house financially and has been told to tattle to me about anything, with the consequence being that I will leave and leave them to pay back the loans themselves. They can't. They're only going to recoup if I don't leave. Commenter says, also, OP, were you not getting notifications or checking the joint account? OP says, nope, bills were getting paid on time and in full. And I wasn't checking the individual drill downs and accounts in our financial reporting software. I have full access and I just checked top line amounts. Like, yep, the full value of money in our accounts is in there. But because the investment account, read fake, was created as an account in our software, it didn't show the money missing because the full value of the investment account equaled the transfers from legitimate accounts. I was also really effed up. I downplayed it in the OG post, but I was considering checking myself into an inpatient mental health hold because I was basically full on hallucinating on a weekly basis. Oof. I was really not with it for the better part of 3 months and wholly trying to get out of mental health crisis while my spouse was also having one as well and mostly emotionally unavailable. I know they didn't do this maliciously, but it does kind of feel like punishment for losing my crap. NOP clarifies, my spouse, I don't believe they wanted to get caught in a scam maliciously. Commenter says, even if intentions were good, it is completely disrespectful that your spouse and their family went behind your back to throw away not just their own, but your combined assets and money. OP says, I'm exploring options to get out from under the debt. I can start over at zero, but I'm not willing to be a willing victim to being in the red and the years of toil that it will take to get out from under these debts, none of which I knew about or consented to. I've always been fiscally conservative with my finances and made a lot of sacrifices in my 20s and 30s instead of taking nice trips, buying nice things, and going to top schools and taking on debt. I'm not flushing that down the toilet even more than I already have. It's probably going to come down to them figuring out they have to tell their family they can't pay the debt or letting me file for divorce. I would never, ever choose to marry someone as far into debt as they are now, at the age I'm at, with the amount of money I make. I still love them, I probably always will, but I would never respect myself again if I indentured myself to their family, who collaborated in this theft with them. Commenter says, only one piece of advice for me. The scammers stole your money. Don't let them also steal your marriage. Don't let criminals who viciously attacked you be the cause of you and your spouse losing things that matter even more than money, right? It does feel like that's kind of where OP's at, but this wasn't the scammers who forced OP's partner to lie about what they were doing. Yeah, the scammers took advantage and stole a bunch of money, but OP's partner decided to lie to OP and take money from their joint account without talking to OP about it.
Well, it sounds like they were both in a mental health crisis at the time, too. I don't know. It sounds like
Absolutely,
you were just
but
ruthlessly targeted by somebody who really knew what they were doing.
Absolutely. I don't want to discredit like what the scammers did. Obviously, the scammers are at fault, but like I get that
train of thought though.
I don't know.
So I feel the same way about like, you know, when there's like familial arguments and you like hate your mother-in-law and then you like go to your partner and you're like, if we're going to have to split if something doesn't change. It's like, well, then it's like mother-in-law wins.
Thanks. That's where I am right now. I don't gain anything from leaving so long as they're trying to make it right. I've already made it pretty clear that if they stop trying, I'm gone. And I'm the one who has lawyers for friends, not them. So I'm not taking those loans in the divorce. Spouse's education. Oh, it's mega stupid. For the record, I have an arts doctorate. They have a STEM masters. You'd think that would mean I would be the gullible one, but no. The crypto wasn't the investment, it was the mechanism that was used to make transfers. The investment was sold as some sort of diversified portfolio. The friend said it did include some crypto. I don't think my spouse ever verified what was allegedly in this portfolio. Like I said, it's extremely dumb, but that's how these scams work. This was a friend they made online. They talked for months about inane things like shared hobbies, books, and TV shows. There was trust there when there shouldn't have been. I know the people I meet online can be fake. Heck, I'd made fake accounts on purpose to crap post. They didn't know that until this. Did spouse attempt to validate things? OP says yes, the problem was that these sites looked completely legitimate from the outside. They had phone numbers set up, email accounts, and all sorts of navigatable pages. To set up an account, the website had two-factor authentication and posted transactions that matched what the people my spouse were in contact with told them. There were multiple websites they set up to transfer funds around that reflected these transactions. I would have spotted it as a fake, but I've created and maintained websites before, so I know how easily things like this can be spoofed and what points to something being wrong. That's why the financial transparency would have prevented prevented this. I would have spotted this as a scam from day one, and it is what makes moving on so difficult. Spouse's response to all this: we're in marriage counseling, so the long and short of it is I don't really know where they were at, not fully, and not yet. It's hard for me to phrase out because I wouldn't even spend or transfer $200 without telling them. I'm an oversharer. I am mostly incapable of emotional unavailability, which is what led to this. I can't keep a secret. I once gave them the silent treatment for 6 hours. That was all I lasted. If they're not mentally with it, they can ice me out for weeks. I think they also ice themselves out and don't know they're in distress. I have a hard time imagining what that is like. Right now, they're mostly really beating the crap out of themselves and convinced I'm a lot more upset and resentful than I am. I told them they can't pull emotionally away or I'll leave, because I can't cope with this by myself. The reason this allegedly happened is that I was really mentally effed up for a solid 3 months. Like, to the point I might have needed to check myself into a hospital type of effed up. They had a pretty bad thing happen some months prior and had been withdrawn ever since. So when something happened to me, the lack of emotional support, which wasn't great before that, made me completely lose my crap. I was fully convinced that they were going to leave me, so I asked them about why they were being so distant, begged them to stop. In their estimation, this actually meant I was going to leave, so they took an account that they had prior to the marriage and invested it, with the goal of making it easier for us to split without either losing the house. Their parents regularly do this because they are very distant and hate each other, so the concept of having an escape plan isn't alien to them, but it is to me. If I'm gonna leave, I don't talk about it. I go to an attorney. They've asked my permission to loan money to people they told me were good for it. They weren't before. They have a habit of being gullible. When we met, the in-laws wanted me to buy into an MLM, and I had to explain to my spouse that if they talk about it at the wedding, I will punt them out. They've just always been the type to think the best of people. The friend they had been talking to had been buttering them up for months. They know I post a lot online, so I guess they assumed it was safe. We met online, too. I believe they're also very sorry. The day after they fessed up, they called my parents and came clean. Told my dad and mom it was 100% on them and not on me at all. I assume someone avoiding responsibility wouldn't do that. I don't know. We've never had marital issues. Never thought I'd be in a situation like this. It's hard to know what is normal. There is a small update, though, but oh boy. Any thoughts?
I think the only path forward is to monetize this in some sort of reality show.
Yeah.
Say, yeah,
Did
we
your partner
lost
lose you
all
$1
of
million?
our money in a scam and we're trying to stay together. Who wants to turn it into a show?
Please. 2 days from OG Post. They've filed reports with pretty much every federal agency now, and we have a meeting with the detective for our city this weekend. I've looked into the messages. It's just friendly things like memes, commiserating about work and politics, and book recommendations. I don't know if it's worse or better that my spouse is so gullible as to invest with a friend rather than the scammer having to feign romantic interest to get them roped in. There was very little in there about keeping it a secret. They didn't really discuss that at all or entice my spouse to be duplicitous. It was more like my spouse would say that my spouse is going through a rough time and they would talk about that occasionally. I'm having trouble with the fact that the secrecy was almost perfunctory and little to no effort was even put into thinking about what my spouse was doing or why and if I should be circled in. There doesn't appear to be malice in any of the statements about me. Just genuine worry. But then they kept it from me almost out of reflex. It's a puzzle, and it seems to point to something in my spouse's default state that needs to be changed, which is what we're working on in therapy. And there is a second update 6 months later. Anyway, because so many of you told me that it helped you when I was so open about what happened when my spouse lost our life savings in a pig slaughtering scam, upwards of $500,000, including loans taken out for the scam fees to withdraw the fake proceeds of the investment. I figure it may help some people to hear some updates. First and foremost, we are still married and together and planning a vacation to celebrate a milestone anniversary later this year. Of course, the trip is less grand than I envisioned for obvious reasons.
Yeah, they're just going to walk down the street.
Yeah, perhaps TMI, but we also resumed having spicy sleep and behaving like a normal married couple. Our family planning, once derailed, is also back on track. The spouse had libido problems from the negative self-worth, but pushed through it. I refused to punish myself with a passed-away bedroom. Second, my spouse was not cheating emotionally or physically. We have decided to call what happened financial infidelity because of the lack of disclosure, even if it was not outright lying. I made my spouse recover all of the messages between them and the person that was the bait for the scam. It was honestly a little funny how thick my spouse was. The bait person, the pictures were real, but the messages were AI, was obviously trying to flirt on several occasions. But it went right over my spouse's head, and they continued to say nice things about me. This was a relief to see. I would have never stayed if the scam involved cheating, even if it was just messages or bad-mouthing me in any way. My spouse was completely taken in by overtures of platonic friendship and AI-aided conversations of shared interests. This naivete is an issue from a very sheltered religious upbringing, and par for the course for my spouse. Which brings me to the third thing. We have separated finances. Every cent that comes out of our joint account is shared in screenshots. We also separated all finances that are not for shared expenses like utilities and the house. We agreed to execute a post-nuptial agreement that acknowledges all debts associated with the scam. My spouse borrowed money from their family for the fake fees, are my spouse's sole and separate property. All equity in the house is mine, except that which exceeds the amount my spouse wasted from the community, i.e. all of our real estate proceeds and retirement account, and then some. The figure is large enough that our house's sale would have to hit over $1 million before my spouse is entitled to anything. Basically, if we divorce, I'm off the hook for everything, and my spouse owes me a hefty sum in perpetuity, which I can execute via a judgment to garnish wages. Fourth, we have not come to an agreement on the loans to my spouse's family. I refuse to pay them off, not 1 cent. Because the in-laws all participated in this scam without once checking in with me to see if it was okay that they were funneling around hundreds of thousands of dollars. They have not insisted they be repaid yet.
Yeah, that's definitely a yet.
What do you say about that?
They're coming for that money.
Yeah.
At some point.
At some point.
And I don't think you should have to pay any of it because it was their money. And they gave
Yeah.
it to your spouse. And your spouse and them all got scammed.
That was my condition to staying in the marriage. I'm not chaining myself to people with an IOU who participated in the breach of trust. The spouse agreed. I think my spouse wants to wear me down eventually, but it's not going to happen. I'm far more stubborn than them. I can tell they're already halfway resigned to disappointing their family. I'm not sorry they made a stupid investment. I did not. They can eat the loss. I already ate far more loss than they did. Loss for all, get it while it's hot. Fifth, the overwhelming guilt my spouse feels on a daily or weekly basis is a huge bummer. So we've been in couples therapy. The self-flagellation is annoying, and I can basically forget the scam happened until they throw a pity party. I'm fine with them feeling bad, but the increasingly less frequent doldrums also punish me. So we're working on it. I also have massive trust issues that were stirred up from the fallout. No shock there. Another couple in our orbit went through something similar, concealed business debts, and actually did break up, which spooked my spouse considerably. So far, there have been no relapses, and our friend group has been on my side, helping us get our lives back on track. Sixth, and on to the most positive news, I got a massive raise, which has dug us out of the hole much faster than I thought. Last week, our household net worth went positive again. This was very exciting, and we went out to celebrate. It pleases me how fortunate we are that not a lot about our daily existence changed, despite how much money we lost. I still have days where I'm mad and genuinely uncharitable, but they come less frequently with time. My earning potential is very good, and so is my spouse's. I'm making them do more work to get additional certifications for their career. In 10 years, I think we'll look back at this and see it as a speed bump rather than a mountain. My own family has been a rock through this. My father really stepped up and has been so supportive emotionally. He has been calling my spouse and kindled a fairly close child-parent-like relationship with them to remind them that they're part of the family. This has been very positive for me because this happened due to my spouse being naive, having issues with self-doubt, and not having a good emotionally supportive relationship with their parents. So the doldrums that annoy me are more fleeting the more my father bonds with my spouse and knocks them out of a funk. The spouse's family are emotionally stunted and extremely naive, as you may have guessed. So talking to my father has been good for my spouse. Funny enough, we also uncovered a sordid family history of big financial losses. My father's wife, we're not blood related, lost about half of what we did through bad investments in the early 2000s. Apparently there was talk of divorce and bankruptcy at the time, but they stayed together. And like us, they made too much to go bankrupt. That's been a bit of a bummer, but my credit score thanks me for not declaring bankruptcy. Yeah, I was like, don't do that, because your credit score is, if it's still good, that's super important to keep good. Also, my own grandparents apparently lost close to $10 million in the savings and loan scandals. Goes to show you how many people get caught in these traps. On the law enforcement front, nothing has happened. Trump ripping apart the DOJ and FBI means nobody in the federal government has done anything. Although we did get a call from a Secret Service guy that went nowhere. I made the spouse report the scam everywhere, no matter how much I could tell it pained them to relieve their own foolishness. Local police tracked the wallets to an address in Africa, so we're basically SOL. The money is gone, as I suspected. They occasionally still, I am the spouse looking for more money, and we dutifully forwarded the information to law enforcement. I think I will look into getting a federal judgment recorded and on file with what little we know about this person and their aliases, at least before the statute of limitations for fraud runs. I know it's probably futile, but for this amount of money, even a 0.01% chance of getting anything back is worth it, even for the filing fees. I just want a public record of what this evil person did to us. By the way, it would be evil of you if you didn't listen to full episodes of stories just like this. Just go to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or iHeartRadio and search up OK Storytime. That's what's been going on. I wouldn't call it a happy ending, but I didn't blow up my life, and we have not lost the house, any cars, or anything like that. Nobody has done anything to themselves either. I hope that those of you that have been taken by such scams, or will be taken, can gain some measure of peace knowing that there is a way out of this sort of betrayal and financial ruination. Many thanks for your kind words, even the ones that were not kind towards my spouse. I needed space to be angry, hurt, confused, and uncharitable, and Reddit provided it. What a story.
I think you're very charitable for even
So
staying in the relationship.
So charitable, man.
That's charitable in and of itself.
Wowee.